Basically, I've worked on 2 new versions of Ibsen plays before. The Wild Duck, which was written before The Lady from the Sea, a few plays before, and John Gabriel Borkman, which was a play that came later than Lady from the Sea. And Sarah Frankham, the director and co-artistic director here, had seen those versions, both at the Donmar Warehouse Theatre in London, and really admired them. You know, when I was at university, when I first went to uni, I wanted to be a director. I didn't want to be a writer. And one of the reasons I went off directing was that I could never find any plays I wanted to direct. And one of the only plays I knew I wanted to direct if I could is Ibsen's The Wild Duck. Now obviously I did my studies and I started to write, and I lost interest in directing, and the way that I could work on The Wild Duck was to write the new version of it. But I think the reason why Ibsen resonates so strongly with me, and why I find his plays so powerful, is because for me they're about people taking responsibility for their past actions in the present tense. And I think that does 2 things. I think for some reason that theme really echoes strongly with me. I don't know why that is, I can't quite account for that, except it just does. But the second thing is that it's a really powerful thing in drama. It's a really powerful thing as an audience to experience when you've got a character in a play having to take responsibility for their actions over the last 10 or 15 years of their life, say. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. In the present tense, here and now. You have to kind of account for those things that happened. And just in dramatic terms, it's a really exciting thing to experience and watch because the stakes are so high. I think with reference to The Wild Duck, to the Lady from the Sea in particular, you know, what appealed to me so strongly about The Lady from the Sea was there's an element within the play that has long appealed to me in fiction anyway, which is the theme of unrequited love. I think that's a really powerful romantic notion a motif that crops up again and again in books, films, plays. And some of my kind of favourite works have been meditations on that sort of theme. So for example, my favourite contemporary novel is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And I've also written a play myself, an original play called Under the Blue Sky, which is a kind of a meditation on unrequited love. And so it's really interesting reading from The Lady from the Sea, which was an Ibsen I didn't know actually. That element of the play really appealed to me. I think the other thing that really, really appealed to me is that it's a really modern play. So I can remember when Sarah asked me if I knew it and if I was interested in it and would I read it. I left this theatre, I went round the corner to Waterstones, bought a copy, and I had a train journey to London. I read it on that train journey there and then. And I rang her actually from Euston and said I want to do it, just because it was great. I know that when the play first came into the building, it was put in the leaflet as an adaptation, and I asked for that to be changed to in a new version by. And the reason for that is that in a new version by, it means that it's an absolutely faithful version of the play in English, but that the writer doesn't have the original language, so they haven't translated it. So I will have worked from a literal translation of the Norwegian and then made a very faithful version of the text from that. My main function really is to provide a really vibrant acting text that can go at the speed of an actor's thought, that can really live in the present tense, because that's what all good plays can really do. They can really live and be inhabited in 3 dimensions. And what you often find with a literal translation is because the person that's doing that job, because they don't have to worry about whether it's it can be acted or not. Their part of the job is just to give me a very accurate picture of the play in English. Often what happens in that process, almost always, is that the play, the energy of the play becomes descriptive rather than active. And what my job is just to make it absolutely something that's active and that can exist moment by moment. There are other little bits and pieces that I do as well, and things that in particular relate to Ibsen, but that's the main thing that I have to do. I remember someone saying once that you know, good dialogue should be like a sprung dance floor, and I think that's right. What's really interesting about The Lady from the Sea is that you see a process of transformation within the story of the play, and a new beginning in the action of the play, and it's almost reflected in the playwriting itself. You know, one of the things that's really interesting about working on The Lady from the Sea, as opposed to, say, the other two Ibsen plays that I've worked on, is that Ibsen feels like he's trying to write much more realistic dialogue. So in the other two plays, you quite often get characters speaking and thinking in full sentences, acting in full thoughts. And what's interesting about The Lady from the Sea is that characters interrupt each other, they repeat themselves. It's almost as if there's a search for a kind of a new stage language almost in The Lady from the Sea. So all of those elements together, coming together when I read it, just were really exciting. You know, what's great was when I've read Charlotte Barsland's literal translations of The Wild Duck, John Gabriel Borkman, and now The Lady from the Sea, that I'm there to work from, is although they're brilliant translations, although they're not always necessarily full of an actable energy, they do convey a bit of a sense of humour that was clearly there in Ibsen, that I haven't always seen before. And I really enjoy that. I really enjoy making sure that wit that's in the playwriting is served in what I do. You know, that Ibsen was clearly someone who had a really wicked sense of irony and humour. You go through different phases as the writer on a show. Kind of the first week of rehearsal, you know, you're almost like you're kind of like a prophet or something. Everyone's sitting there asking you for your wisdom, and all the actors have got hundreds of questions about the script. But then at the end, you know, when you get back, I think there's two crucial things you can do. You know, I think at the end of rehearsals, you know, the director and stage management are normally getting much more focused on production week to come. And I think that then as a writer can play a crucial peripatetic role in a production. Just, you know, buying a drink in the pub, you know, saying well done. You know, if DSM's not got time to make the tea, the writer can do the tea run. So you kind of have that sort of function. And then obviously there's the other function, which is to do with just having this fresh pair of eyes on the work that's sort of grown a huge amount in the last fortnight or so.
I love the idea of you going from prophets to tea lady.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I can remember doing it on a play of mine a few years ago where there was an actress that was really having a really bad time because she'd split up with her boyfriend, and the director didn't quite have the time that he'd had previously to just make sure she was okay. I just remember just making endless trips down the cut in Waterloo in London to buy a chocolate. I was doing a daily chocolate run for about 3 or 4 days. And that was the most useful thing I could do at that point, you know, because everyone else had got fed up with it.